Hi, I'm the Rick and Rick Turns. And this is the fourth video in my series of videos about how to build this tool rest for my wood turning lathe. And today I'm going to talk about sizing the different pieces of the assembly. The length of these two pieces right here, just about anything. The length of this needs to be a little bit closer than just about anything. If the tool post is too long, the tool rest will not go down low enough, and if the tool post is too short, the tool rest will not come up high enough. So let's go over to the workbench and we'll talk about this a little bit, and then I'll show you how I come up with the measurement on my lathe. As I mentioned, I'm talking this morning about the sizes of the various pieces of metal here that we're going to need to cut. And the size of this piece, the angle iron, which is the tool rest arm, and then this piece right here, the wear strip, which goes on top of the angle iron. Obviously the wear strip is going to be the same length as the tool rest arm is going to be. And the tool rest arm can be just about any length you want it to be. Now, I've made them as small as about 4 inches, and that works well for certain pieces of work. I've also made one as long as 16 inches, which actually doesn't work all that well because when you're mounted up and turning things, the torque when you're cutting way out on here has a tendency to slowly force this in towards the workpiece. So if you do make a really long one like this, and this is only 16 inches, be sure you clamp it down really tight. There's a reason why you don't see real long tool rests for sale. Now, the length of the tool rest post is not quite as obvious. And it's not quite as obvious because the overall height of the tool rest also includes this right here. Now this one's pretty easy to calculate, obviously, because right here we've got a 2 by 2 inch piece of angle iron. The length from here to here, the first height is 2 inches. This is a 5/16 inch diameter piece of steel, round rod. So our overall distance from here down to here is 2 5/16 inches. So that distance gets added into this distance to make up the overall height of the tool rest. Pretty obvious stuff. So what is this distance right here? Well, one way you can look at this is to go back to your original tool rest that came with your lathe. How do you convert this height to what you need right here? Well, it's actually pretty simple, of course. Measure the overall height of your tool rest. So I'm coming out from the very topmost edge of the arm, right about there, to the very bottom of the post. I get 4 7/8 inches. Okay, so that's the overall length of the tool rest that you need. So you know here, from this point to this point, the top here to the bottom here, you know you have 2 5/16 inches. So you take your total distance here, 4 7/8, and you measure your total height here, 2 5/16, and that gets you your tool rest, your tool post height right here. This is my lathe. It's a Jet 1442, 14-inch swing. The distance from the very center of the drive, right here, down to the ways is 7 inches. So there's one restriction right there on the length of your tool rest. And there's several considerations that you need to think about when you're doing this. First of all, how far above the center line do you cut when you're using a gouge, a roughing gouge, for instance, a spindle gouge, or a skew? Now, I was looking at this earlier, thinking about this. I have a tool rest at minimum height right here, and I've got a total distance below center line of 1/4 of an inch. Now I have the tool rest at maximum height, and I have kind of hard to tell, but a total of 40 millimeters, or about 1 5/8 inches above center line. Generally, if you set your tool rest so that it hits right about center line, let's see, for this one it's right about there. If you start at that point and you're running your roughing gouge along here, then you're actually probably getting just a little bit above center line cut. I have the camera set up looking right down here, trying to get a good picture of the angle of the tool. So my first cut is going to be tool rest below center line. Roughing cut, roughing gouge, about 1 inch, I think. So even though I have the tool rest below center line, the way I'm holding the tool edge is still slightly above center line. I'm going to raise the tool rest up to center line, right on center line now. Do the same thing. And as you would expect to see, now to get a good cut, the tool is much more horizontal than it was when this was down lower. Now I'm going to raise this up. It's about I think about 1/4 above center line. I don't ever do roughing with it this high, but I just wanted to take a picture of it. So you can see with the tool rest above center line and a roughing gouge, I really had to tilt the gouge downward like that to get a cut. This is a large skew chisel. I've got the tool rest set down at minimum height. Okay, as you can see with this, I've got a really steep angle there, so much so that were I not making a video, I would not even have taken the cut. To me, that just looks dangerous. Okay, I'm going to raise the tool rest up to center height. Now we'll put the skew on it again. Okay, I'm a lot more comfortable with that skew cut. It doesn't feel like I'm about to dig it into the edge of the workpiece. Nevertheless, that's not where I usually put it, because I feel even more comfortable when the tool rest is right up there. As you can see, my preferred position for the tool rest for doing that planing cut with the skew is a good bit above center line, probably 3/4 of an inch or so above center line. So that's one consideration and one reason why you might want a tool rest post that's a little longer than what you might think. The opposite of that is how far down do you need that tool rest to ever drop. This one doesn't go down too much below center, just maybe 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch. Whereas the one that came with the lathe, it drops down quite a ways. Probably looks like maybe 3/4 or 1/2 an inch below the center line. Now, when do you want it at maximum depression? Shortest? For me, that would be when I'm using parting tool. Now I've got a parting tool here. I'm going to make some end cuts just to see what it looks like. I'm starting off with the tool rest at minimum height. I'm going to raise the tool rest up to center line, make the same cut, same parting tool. And finally, I'm going to raise the tool rest up about another 1/4 inch or so, make that same cut again with the same tool. So you can see how that tool angle varies with the height of the tool rest. With it at a higher height like that, I was tilting it downward to get a cut. At minimum height, I'm about level with it. If you find you typically have your tool rest below center a lot, then you might want to make your tool rest arm a little shorter than what it might otherwise be. All right, what I'm going to do to figure out my tool post length, I've got a length of 1 inch rod here, and I'm going to move this, and that's as far in as the banjo will go. So I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm not going to measure it. So this right here now, this line is the center point of the drive. From the spur center, right here is the line. So if I cut the tool post that length, it's not going to work too well, because then I'm going to braze that on top of it and would end up with a tool rest that goes way up here. Not good. What do we need to do? We need to take this distance off of here. So I'm going to go down to here. So if I were to cut this, and this would be the length of my tool post down here, this is going to be waist, this is going to be waist. So that's the length of my tool post from here down into here. And when you braze this on the top, it'll go up right here, center line right there. Now, what's wrong with this picture? It'll never go below center line. And that's probably not really what you want. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to take off about 3/4 of an inch of that. And that is, well, that's right down to there. So this line, if I cut this to be my tool post down here, this isn't going to be part of it. I'll put this on here, it'll drop down to here. The tool rest arm made out of this type of angle iron, this size angle iron, is going to bottom right on here. And it'll come up 2 5/8, which is going to be, hard to see there, which is going to be about 3/4 below center line. Now, if I raise this up as far as it'll go and still hold, holes there, and that doesn't feel too good. I'm going to drop it a little bit. So let's say this is maximum extension so that you get a good grip here. So that'd be your maximum safe extension. And if our tool rest is sitting right here, then here's the height, and we look like we're about 3/4, maybe an inch above center line. So that's probably pretty good. I don't think I would ever need it to come more than that. So this is what I get for my length of the tool post. This is the way to do it, I think, to measure your tool post instead of just calculating numbers and so forth. Start with it like this with your banjo, with a drive center in here so that you get the center line, and do those measurements like I did. You should have your 1 inch bar or your 1 inch rod, so you'll be able to drop it in there just like that and make those same marks that I did. Mark the center line right here by eyeballing it up to the spur there. If your banjo will go even farther in, great, you can get it a little bit better. Take off the height of the tool arm, the tool rest arm, the height, which is from here up to here. Start from that point that we just marked, which is your center line, drop it down here, right there, and then take off what you think you might want as your maximum or as your lowest point of the tool rest. So you've gone through all the markings, you made all the marks, you've made the measurements, and you now have a perfect tool post length measured right there. The next thing to do is add a fudge factor of at least a ½ inch. I would put it right about there, and that is going to be where I cut the tool post at. And the reason you do this, of course, is no matter how careful you are, you may have forgotten something. And it's a lot easier after the entire tool rest is done. It's a lot easier to take off length here by just cutting off down at the end than it is to try and raise it up, which probably wouldn't work very well at all. When the entire tool rest is finished, put it in your lathe and decide then exactly how much do you want to take off so that everything is perfect. That's all I have to say about measuring for the 3 pieces of this tool rest. Not that complicated. Should work for you. But just remember, when you cut this post length, make sure whatever your estimated length is, you cut at least an extra half, maybe even an extra inch, just to make sure. A lot easier to make it shorter than it is to make it longer. In the next video in this series, we'll actually get started cutting the metal. Going to cut the metal down, drill some holes, and tap the hole in the tool post. See you then.